Yo, what's up to all of our listeners? In honor of Easter, just want to give shout-outs to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for without him, none of this Pastor with No Answers business would be possible. So thank you, Jesus, my Lord and Savior. Actually, in honor of Easter, I do want to read a quote from C.S. Lewis, since this is not an Easter episode and we just celebrated Easter. Quote, "You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to." End quote. Now, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode of Pastor with No Answers, in which we'll be talking about hard drugs and how they may not be all that bad. Oh, goodness. Welcome to the podcast. All right, this is the Pastor with No Answers, and I'm here with two friends from the Church and Other Drugs podcast, and I just want to jump right in, man. How does it feel to be called on this show, not to be like experts on illegal drugs, but experts on illegal drug use?
At least I'm good at something. Yeah,
I gotta tell you
how I feel about it.
I gotta tell you, Joey, it feels real good. Real good.
What do you mean by that?
Exactly.
What's going on over there?
Feels good, man. Feels good.
All right, so here's what I want to do. I want to jump right in, like I said, and get out. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of scenarios to explore involving Christians and drug use, and they're going to be fictional, but I'm sure represent some real deal situations. All right, so Johnny leads a small group, and he has a pretty healthy, balanced life between his career, family, rest, and exercise. He works extremely hard during the week, and on most Fridays enjoys a joint to unwind and relax with his wife. Now, it's illegal in his state, so he has to be sneaky, and he'd never dare tell the vast majority of people he fellowships with at his church, because if it got around, he'd be removed from leadership and ostracized. My question to you guys is, do you think this scenario is common?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say extremely common.
Yes.
Yeah. So because this is, what I described. In most of our minds, we go towards an evangelical Christian. He's going to a Christian church with Christian beliefs. Jesus is the only way. The list goes on. Sounds pretty conservative. And so here he is smoking weed, and he can't tell anybody because they'd be like, whoa, you can't do that. So let's look at this at all sorts of different angles. First of all, what do you guys think about the whole illegal thing? And I'll give this as an example, so you know where I'm coming from. So there's a friend of mine that actually said he would try marijuana in a heartbeat if it was legal. But since it is illegal, he feels like that would be morally wrong.
We'll just take turns on this. You go first.
Yeah, that's tough. I should say in the past, I've never had any issue with using drugs because it's illegal. My issues have always been otherwise. But I think that smoking marijuana, I say almost go for it. Honestly,
Yeah.
To me, the potential benefits kind of outweigh the legality of the whole situation.
Yeah.
But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
I will say, if we're going strict, would it possibly be sinful? An argument could be made that you're supposed to follow the law of the land. Beyond that, I think the law is complete and utter rubbish, because if alcohol is going to be legal, marijuana needs to be illegal. And if you do any sort of research into it, it's illegal strictly from a profit and modern day slavery position, filling prisons. And it's not illegal for the right reasons.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing that really just blows my mind too, though, is the same Christians that say, hey man, I can see different debates on the issue, but when it comes to illegal, I mean, that's pretty black and white. You shouldn't mess with it. And I want to ask that person, okay, let's just dig into your life and see how many things you do illegally, such as...
Have you ever sped?
Exactly. Have you ever watched a movie illegally? Have you ever tuned into a sport that you didn't really have access, legal access to? So I just think that one is just a pretty shallow approach.
It's almost the homosexuality thing. Like if it's a sin, so is overeating, so is misuse of wealth, so is it's almost that argument.
Yeah. All right. So I don't think I even have to, given what y'all have already said, but in y'all's mind, y'all don't see anything wrong with this at all. This scenario that I depicted.
Morally speaking, no.
Right.
I think that it could be sketchy for certain people in certain professions.
Right.
You're obviously putting yourself at risk smoking marijuana, but morally, I mean, unless you are an addict, a drug addict like Jed and myself, I say go for it. I mean, if you can use marijuana responsibly, go for it.
I think it's definitely between you and God, for sure. Because some people, I would say absolutely not, and some people, I would say, yeah, sure.
Okay, so how would you guys process? Do y'all kind of know the go-to scriptures that people go to say, nah, you shouldn't do marijuana? So, for example,
I know a few.
Yeah, let's read through these. One would be 2 Timothy 1:7, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Interestingly,
it's translated sober mind too.
Yes,
right?
And interestingly enough, though, most translations say and of self-discipline or self-control, which leaves you thinking, what is this about? Is this about self-control in general, or like a mind that can think logically and that sort of thing? So that's one of them. Romans 12:2, I've heard this one used, and do not be conformed to this world, transformed by the renewing of your mind. So how can your mind be renewed if you're high as a kite? 1 Peter 1:13, wherefore gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and there you go, and hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So could you say anything opposite of sober is not of God? I mean, is that a proper use of Scripture in this regard?
It could be.
So Jed, you're open to all drug use or all the effects of drug use that are mind altering, all of it being a sin. You're open to that possibility?
With the cap, because the other verses, it could be, thou shalt have no other gods before me, because it's the Bible talks about pharmakia, which sorcery, which is that's where we get pharmaceuticals and stuff. So that's the connection there. Paul talking about don't be involved in orgies and drunkenness and stuff in the night. Something about always be vigilant and sober, and alcohol is called spirits, for a reason. I don't know. I don't know. I can see how the trouble with drugs and chemicals is they can be a very effective substitute for God and for what you need to get from God.
Yeah.
And can it be used properly? Yes, I have to say yes.
All right, so let's take what you just said and go back to this scenario. It seems that that's not the case for Johnny. I'm not saying that Johnny goes home every single day stressed out about work, stressed out about life, bummed out about his life situation, and so he goes and gets high every day. It's basically saying he's got a pretty good life. He's pretty jazzed up. Friday nights, he usually smokes a joint with his wife. So it seems like, so if in your mind Johnny is putting God first, you'd say, nah, this is totally cool.
Yeah. I would say, and if I go back to like creation, we have cannabinoid receptors in our brain built in. Yeah. So it's like, and I don't know. Yeah, it's.
All right, so
let's not.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an important point to make that like there's a little high and then there's stoned too.
Correct.
Right. So there's using that drug responsibly, just like drinking whiskey or just like doing anything else mind altering. There's a little bit to take the edge off, and then there's like I can't get up off the couch and stop eating these Cheetos because I'm so high.
Do you think there's a level of drunkenness that's outside of God's will in every single case, every single scenario?
Like, well, check this. It could be like, okay, God gave us barley and honey. We can make a little bit of mead. We have twisted that into moonshine.
Right.
Okay. And then God gave us this plant. This is all theoretical. God gave us this plant. You can eat it, ingest it, and get the CBD as well as the THC, get a mild little body thing. We now have like 26% THC strands in super concentrated oils. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I usually tend to look at the world as what man has taken originally meant for good and twisted to fill our needs, and just so
in y'all's in y'all's minds, so going the alcohol route, in y'all's minds, when Scripture mentions drunkenness, do y'all put isolated once in a while party night into that category? Because I have a good friend of mine who tries to live by Christian teachings and biblical teachings, and he thinks that on a Friday night, hanging out with your friends in the privacy of your own home or backyard over a bonfire, if you get tossed up that night, there's no problem with that. And what the Bible means when it talks about drunkenness is basically a lifestyle of drunkenness where you're constantly on the bottle, not functioning in society. Alcohol is your idol, And I think there's room for that argument, in my opinion. Now, I guess I'd have to lean on the side of saying that I'm not there right now, but I think it makes a whole lot of sense. But you guys would kind of be at a place to where it sounds like Jay, it sounds like you're saying if you're super high, that's kind of outside of God's best will for you. If you're smashed with alcohol, that's kind of outside of God's will for you. Am I right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would even say, when we get out of control, when we cannot control our actions or our thoughts, that's kind of where I would draw the line. The metaphoric line, if you will. So a sober mind being in charge of my faculties is kind of where I would draw that line. And you can cross it with any mind-altering substance.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And if you're putting on, and I'll take it biblically and spiritually, if you're putting on the armor of God, right?
You're
all of a sudden like putting on the toga of reefer madness. You know what I mean? No, I mean it's like even when you're out of control, something is in control. I don't know. I feel like your defenses are down in a spiritual sense. Like I really think there is like wisdom to them naming alcohol spirits, like back in the day.
Right.
And it still is. But I'm talking about extreme cases, I guess. So I guess when we're talking about, for me, point period, if you're going to be okay with drinking beer, then absolutely smoking a little joint has to be okay, because it's infinitely safer than alcohol. Alcohol is the most deadly drug in the world, like fact, period. It's the only drug that causes cancer in every part of the body it touches.
Yeah, yeah. So I think people would be hard-pressed to make a case, though, that the aspect of drugs and it feeling good is why it's not good. I was thinking about this before coming on with you guys, because I've got so many different things I want to explore. I want to hear about y'all's drug past, different drugs that you've done, and different crazy experiences and all that stuff. But I was thinking, I don't think God is against, and it sounds so crazy because I am raised fundamentalist, so it almost seems like, every person that I was ever brought up in church with, if they're dead now, they're turning over in their graves. Like, I cannot believe Joey is saying this. But it can't be because it feels really good, because otherwise, why would God have created something like sex?
Yeah, that's where I was going.
But my question, though, with what you said, Jed, as far as him creating the receptors in our brain that have the capacity to, whatever it's doing, making you feel good, couldn't you also then say that he also made most males to lean more towards polygamy when it comes to sexual partners? Like, don't you think we're just left to our own nature, we're just prone to go be with multiple sex partners. I think most of us, outside of cultural conditioning, a true desire to stay loyal to our wives who we love first and foremost, I think from a very animal instinct, we could probably say, no, we just kind of gravitate towards wanting to have sex with basically anything we're attracted to.
I plead the fifth.
I was just gonna say, my wife.
No.
knows that
I
I'm
mean,
on this
yeah, sure. There's,
podcast, so.
yeah, like attraction. Yeah. I can definitely tell you, like, I've sown my oats and I'm over that shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm good being like, so like married, you know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like,
Well,
it's not as but yeah, like from a, do I think other people are attractive? Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to find a hole in your argument, and maybe there isn't one, but it just seems like we have the capacity. I mean, it seems like someone would receive pleasure in their brain, like psychopaths have received pleasure from killing people, and so their brain had the ability to feel pleasure in those situations, but it doesn't necessarily make it all right. So in other words, okay, our brains were created to be able to receive certain sorts of pleasure. Does that mean that the drugs that induce that are okay because of that?
Well, and my favorite theory is, like, for all I know, our appendix before the fall was used to make heroin not addictive or cocaine not addictive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who knows what our fully glorified state was
Totally
capable of and what things are made for. I guess it's hard to know what things are a result of the fall.
So have y'all ever thought about this, especially being guys that y'all, I mean, are y'all comfortable with saying you enjoyed your drug pass? Like
yes.
Okay.
I would say, yeah, most of it.
Yeah,
Towards
okay.
the end, it got really hairy. But
All right,
yeah.
so think of the highlights then. so
yeah.
so the highlights of
Yeah.
your drug pass. Could you kind of go here in your mind thinking maybe there's going to be opportunities in heaven in perfect unity with God our Father who loves us, and He's going to let us do that stuff in our brain again, and it's going to be totally okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have y'all thought
Sure.
about that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. I used to get freaked out by the idea of eternity. Like, even if heaven is just like earth, but just like you can do whatever you want forever. I was like, that would kind of suck. But I will tell you, having done ecstasy, if I was just on a constant state of ecstasy, like each moment is better than the one before it. So like that is like,
Are you
that was I'm like, it was a
Oh,
real
man.
deal. Like,
Yeah.
even if that was it, then that would be fine. Your brain at that moment is incapable of feeling bad.
Yeah. I mean, seriously,
So.
like I just think that for me, heaven is just wide open door of imagination. And I mean, what if you're onto something, and that any level of pleasure that we could figure out by sinful or non-sinful means here on earth, like what if the sky's the limit in heaven, and because we don't have a sinful nature there, we can kind of do everything in moderation? Because it seems like you would say, okay, well, if you could,
so much farther.
yeah, it seems like you'd be like, if you can achieve like some euphoric state in heaven, that's all you would ever want to do. But maybe not if you don't have a sinful nature. You would just kind of know when to and when not to.
Well, and I think that's some of the trap and danger of drugs, and I think that's why it's used by the enemy, is that, like, we're not. I probably wasn't meant to go that high here, because then my friend once told me, like, very simply, he was like, you know, Jed, if you didn't have those highs, you wouldn't have the lows you have too. And I was like, yeah, because it's like, I can tell you, after like shooting up crystal meth and heroin, like, is probably the pinnacle of like euphoria. You know what I'm saying? And I've been there, and it's like, there's nowhere to go.
Oh,
from.
yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and then, you know, chasing physical pleasure, which that was chasing chemical pleasure was what I was going for. You come up short. It's empty. There's no such, you know, it's fleeting, and it's never what you think it is. And it turns out to be this big lie. So I personally think like heavenly pleasure is just going to be something. It's got to be something just unimaginably
Yeah.
different.
All right, so me personally, having no experience with what you're talking about with heroin and like that level of euphoria, hopefully this shouldn't make y'all too uncomfortable listening to some of y'all's podcast episodes. But so let's take a sexual orgasm for a male.
Yeah.
Like at the climax of that. Have you experienced drugs that surpass that, and it's just and it's continual?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah, there's a lot of folks. There's a lot of folks that, or I've heard of a handful of folks.
I've done a
releasing.
shot that made me climax.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. That release as they shoot.
Yeah. I thought
It feels
that was
so
myth.
good.
Wait a
Well,
second.
and
Wait a
science.
second. So you
did.
actually got high, and it caused you to shoot a load.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god!
No stimulation.
It's not
nothing.
it's not
it
uncommon. Yeah.
And like, to put it scientifically, it's like an orgasm is like 6,000 joules.
I hate the fact that I'm laughing because so many people have screwed their lives up and overdosed and died, and here I am laughing. But
Well, yeah, I mean, I always thought
I mean,
it
it's
was
funny.
a myth until it happened. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's a real thing.
like this
Yeah,
feels
totally
so
is.
good. I'm attracted to this high. Gosh. So seriously though, like, would you say that oftentimes, or throw that word out of it, but are there times, have you experienced or heard of people that experience that the level of high was the same as a male's orgasm, but steady? Like, in other words,
they've done studies. Like, an orgasm is like, I can't remember the unit of measurement, but an orgasm is around like 800 to 5,000 units of dopamine, and methamphetamine is like 200,000. It's like the mother of all dopamine dumps.
but it's not a 10 or 15 second deal. It's
yeah.
Oh, you're
a long
high for a
time.
long time.
Long.
Lord. All right,
Yeah.
so all right,
But
so
that
to put
causes
so to put this in perspective for our listeners, what you guys are saying, and I don't know what a female orgasm feels like. I mean,
I don't think they exist.
from observation, my wife really likes it. So, but from what I've experienced, you mean to tell me that when I have had an orgasm, there are drugs that you have like
make that
way,
look like-
way more than that, but continual, like hours on end.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, so all right, this is going to sound funny, but when I am coming, there's definitely like like I don't know what to do with myself. It feels so good.
Yeah.
Can you ever relax in that drug induced state? Like, can you just like chill and be
Yeah.
Well, and it's different in that it's not that muscular, like clenching and that sort of thing, but the euphoria level and the dopamine dump and what Jed was talking about is there, right? So it feels that good, but you're not.
Yeah, it's not. It's
Yeah.
it's not a 6-hour cum. Like, it's not that. Like,
But it does feel that good. It does feel as good as sex.
It feels
I can tell
better.
you, like,
And then I was into chemsex too, which is just using certain drugs for the specific reason of having heightened sexual experiences, and so that's even.
Yeah.
I mean, so with what y'all are describing, if you take an addict, like, it would not be uncommon for them to lose interest in sex. Why would you still gravitate towards sex outside of the companion side? But if you feel that good, and it takes
Depending on the substance.
yeah,
and there are people that don't like lose their libido.
Yeah.
when they're using.
Yeah, like amphetamines and meth causes like hyper libido. Opiates, you could care less.
Yeah, I was big into benzos, which is like Xanax and liquor, and I couldn't perform.
Yeah.
I was so out of it.
So what you guys just described, all right, seriously has kind of my mind blown a little bit, but I think it's even opened my eyes just to why you guys would have a perspective of, because I know both of y'all are pretty progressive thinkers, and I would imagine in the subject of drugs too, but there's obviously there's like a limit to your thinking because you've experienced something so unbelievably pleasurable. You're like, wait a second, this can't be what God's intended for life on this earth, because otherwise, if we're allowed to just explore that, without any limitations, it's just going to destroy someone. I mean, it's kind of like in scientific labs. I think I heard the scenario of a rat that had stuff hooked up to its brain, and it could keep on pushing buttons. And I think every 100th time it pushed the button, it would trigger an orgasm. And it could either push buttons or it could eat. And they actually observed a rat that just could not stop pushing the button and ended up dying because it wasn't nourishing itself. I mean, so
you just described my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get especially with
wait, describe that, because it sounded like you were making a joke, but you weren't making a joke.
Oh no.
I mean, kind of a joke. I mean, it's a joke in that it's a funny analogy to make myself to a rat, but at the same time, those years of drinking and using, like I physically ate. Yeah, you dirty rat. So, but those years of drinking and using, I was malnourished spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, right? Like I didn't eat. Yeah. So, and I just burned myself out on pushing buttons.
Okay, so why, with what you guys have been describing, and so I guess I want to understand the depth of y'all's drug use. Why even fool around with alcohol? Like, it seems like it seems like alcohol is just going to make you eventually sick to your stomach.
It was weak. Also, well, a couple of reasons. There's some people lack certain enzymes. Like, alcohol affects women differently, and some people with different heritages, like Irish and Scottish, there is something DNA there that like is more enjoyable. It never did much for me. I didn't like the taste, and I was all about like I want quickest effect, and it didn't last long enough.
Yeah. So I wasn't an IV drug user like Jed, so I never shot dope.
Okay.
But I would drink a lot and then use prescription pills to enhance that. Like, I just wanted oblivion. I wanted to black out. I wanted to not feel the way or think anymore. Yeah. And so I would use a lot of hard liquor and prescription pills to get there.
Yeah. It's just a matter of taste.
It's a different strokes for different folks kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, okay. Tell me before I'm gonna do a little adjusting on this next scenario that I'm gonna read. So tell me the most crazy euphoric high that you've ever been on. What drug was it? Like, what's the best you've ever felt? What was it?
You go first.
The most exhilarating I think I ever felt was the first time I did cocaine.
Okay.
I'll say that. And it was just like this mind-blowing opening. I can't really describe it in words, but the first time I ever did a big fat line of coke was just a huge, like, fireworks went off in my brain.
Yeah.
I was in a like shady motel room. This was when I was 17, and we'd been shooting up fentanyl, and it was the first time my friend shot me up with cocaine, and then I fell back onto the bed, and his mom actually walked over and put a crack pipe in my mouth and was like, "Hit this," and I didn't know what it was.
His mom?
Yeah, she was a prostitute. It was
Wow.
It was a bad situation, but then that like.
All right, so I'm sorry I interrupted you. So you hit a crack pipe.
I was on fentanyl, and I just shot up cocaine too, and I was so like.
And you inhaled crack, you said?
Yeah.
Good gosh. Now, for some people, if they experiment at that level with so many things, can that kill somebody?
Oh yeah. Ask Jay. It has killed me.
Yeah,
it can. Yeah. So the crack and the coke can obviously make your heart explode.
Yeah.
And then the fentanyl, the opiates can put you down for the count. So
yeah,
it's you're messing with fire. You're rolling the dice every time you do hard drugs like that.
Dang.
Yeah.
What would you say it's okay? Let me read this. All right, Debbie's been a Christian now for 10 years. She doesn't really do any sort of drugs other than morning cups of coffee and an occasional glass of wine. However, when she goes back home to liberal, drug-infested Seattle for high school friend reunion,
Seattle.
she typically does a little bit of cocaine as she did years ago with her high school friends. She is a bit torn on this. It's a lot of fun, but she feels like she's a pretty bad example of what a good Christian lifestyle is and potentially confusing to her friends. Now, my guess, and I'm interested if you'll push back on this, my guess is this would be probably pretty uncommon.
I would say it's pretty uncommon.
I would say pretty uncommon.
Yeah, just because the stigma, I think, around cocaine now. But
you could switch that out with Adderall.
Yeah.
And that would be... Adderall and Xanax are the most, like, common thing people are doing heavily and might not even think that it's a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now...
Yeah, and Adderall is just it's an amphetamine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just as bad if you are misusing it like that.
Okay, so let's say in this case it's true. What do y'all think about Debbie? If y'all meet Debbie and y'all get to be good friends with her and you're making fun of her, kind of being goofy about how stuck up she is and how she doesn't swear and she's always edifying and positive, and next thing you know she's just like, y'all never believe this, but when I go back home and hang out with my old high school friends, I snort coke. Would y'all, knowing what you know about Debbie, would y'all be like, man, you need to stop that? And she's like, what are you talking about? It's like annual.
Yeah. I would definitely tell her that's you need to stop that.
Okay, now why? Morally, she needs to stop?
Morally, practically, I have yet to see anyone I've yet to see someone use cocaine and the next day they're a CEO and their life is just way better. See,
this is, I think, where we're going to diverge. I think we're going to diverge.
You think it's cool?
I think that if she's doing a couple key bumps with her friend out in Seattle once a year, I don't think that there's a huge problem with that.
Well, check this out.
All right, let me ask y'all this. How likely is it? How likely is this scenario for her to be able to do that once a year? And
exactly.
And if it is likely, is it just a type of personality? Because I've watched a documentary before on cocaine, and the guy said it was literally impossible for me not to do it again. He said, I was a normal person just like anybody else who said they would never be addicted to drugs. I tried it one time, and I couldn't not do it. Is that a personality type, or would y'all say, no, that's anybody?
I think it's a personality type. And that's when I think that we draw the line with fictional Debbie here, is that she does it once a year. She doesn't overindulge in alcohol. She doesn't overindulge in anything else when she's home. And she goes to, we'll call it Satan-addle, once a year and does some coke with her high school friends. I don't see that there's anything wrong with that.
With that, sure, but this might as well be called Red Riding Hood. This scenario does not exist. And I've never
I don't know, man. I met some people that did coke very infrequently.
But they just did 3 key bumps and they were just good for really? Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, a couple times. But here's the thing, too, Jed, is we didn't hang out with those type of people.
Exactly.
I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, so Jay, what you're saying is if you didn't have the depth of addictive tendencies that you do have, would if you could do what Debbie does, would you do that?
That's a ton.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would be much more into the first one, with smoking weed with my wife. But if I didn't have addictive personalities, I would partake from time to time.
Yeah.
So Joey, I'm looking for a new co-host. I don't know if you know anyone, but it turns out there's a fundamental disagreement. No, I mean, man, I don't know. I see that as one of those things that has
So Jed, are you wanting to be able to say that all cocaine use is just outside of God's will? Is that what you're after?
Except for what it is traditionally used as in the chewing of the coca leaf to aid in, which causes a mild stimulant effect, which is what they do.
What about as an anesthetic?
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. That's medical use. As if we're talking about like its benefits, people just chew the leaf, and it's like coffee.
Gosh. All right, so
I saw you processing.
yeah, I'm
Yeah, but
processing
like
a
the
lot.
process for fine cocaine, man, I find it hard pressed to see that have any like place in. Would I see Jesus being like, yeah, you can snort a little blow, no big deal. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? There you go. I died for your sins. Go on, snort that.
Right. All right.
I
Well,
don't know.
okay. Let's So we're gonna stick with Jed on this one right here. Replace this with alcohol. You down with her getting drunk with her friends?
Getting drunk, I'll say no.
Okay. How about you, Jay?
Are we talking like Hammer dancing on the bar and like
Yeah,
wakes
yeah,
up in
well-
a place she doesn't know?
well,
or
no,
are we talking about
ba-
like getting a little buzzed with their girlfriends?
No, I'm saying getting ripped apart, but she's in a house with her buddies, and there's no danger. They don't have to drive anywhere. They are in her friend's house. They're not going anywhere. But
Sure.
she's just like, this is one time a year. I love the Lord, but I'm going to just go crazy. If she's married, there's no dudes around where she would potentially cheat. She's
I got something to say on that,
She just
too.
wants to go crazy.
Yeah, I think getting completely plowed in any case is problematic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jed.
Like you said, the thing that stuck out to me is you said there's no danger there. And yet, how much easier is it to say some dumb shit you shouldn't have said when you're wasted? How much is it easier? Like, it's like sinning without knowing it, or just causing harms without knowing it. The likelihood of you doing that, I would say, is increased
Yeah.
at the very least.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so you guys are pretty much Jay, but you would be okay with her. So tell me the difference in drinking a bunch and getting wasted as opposed
There's a
to
difference.
snorting a line. Like, seriously, I just
So-
don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the difference kind of is drinking a ton. I see as out of moderation,
Yeah.
and snorting a line of cocaine isn't completely like out of moderation.
Yeah,
So-
you're not going to be out of your mind.
You're
Well,
not going to
it's
be
not.
crazy
It's
over
not.
the top.
You're going to be
Really?
like, yeah,
You're going to
just
be like
hyper-focused.
buzzing a little bit. Yeah.
And
So
have you ever-
when
Okay,
get,
so
like-
so when you were talking about that super euphoric situation where it was probably the best you've ever felt, that was a lot of cocaine.
that was a lot of cocaine and like one big snort,
Gotcha.
like a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like movie-sized Hollywoodism. Like a key bump is not gonna like do that much.
Yeah.
Whereas, have you ever seen a drunk person? Like a super belligerently drunk person? Like, talk about a wrecking ball. An
Yeah.
incorrigible wrecking ball.
So the measuring stick for you, Jed, and you're saying that drug use outside of God's will is when you start to lose self-control. Is that safe to say? And that seems to match some of the verses that we read as well.
I would say yes. And as long as you are not putting it before God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can put anything before. You can put food, you can put
Money, yeah, whatever.
you can put anything before God, and that would be just as problematic.
Yeah. All right. So what are some other things that you guys have tried? So heroin, what's that? What does that feel like as compared to cocaine, Jed?
Quite the opposite. It's just
And let me ask this. This is interesting to me. Are these questions hard to talk about on such a surface level, lackadaisical deal when for both of you guys, this is like, dude, this stuff almost killed me and destroyed my life.
Oh,
like,
no, cause, well, I mean, I'm going into this as a career, and it's it's like what I quote unquote majored in college in. It's what I know. So it's if it can be used to help someone, then no, not at all, man.
Gotcha.
Not at all. Heroin is just have you ever done a lower tab? Vicodin?
I think
You have kidney stones.
Yeah, I think Loratab and what's the other one that I've oxycodone.
Yeah. You ever been in the hospital and
Yes.
they give you an IV?
Dude, back in the day, I mean, so 8th grade for me was 26 years ago. I literally was hooked up with an IV and had morphine going to my body. So imagine going from the most intense pain where you literally think, I cannot survive this pain, and then all of a sudden have a bunch of morphine going into your system. And you talk about euphoric as that one extreme to another. It was like, oh my gosh.
Heroin is diacetyl morphine.
What's diacetyl?
That's just the chemical group. It's
Gotcha.
Your body changes every opiate to morphine in your body.
Gotcha.
So that's the same feeling. So you get a gauge of what that is.
So like morphine, heroin, cocaine, crack, and all that stuff. I know those aren't in the exact same. They're not even near in the same category. But those don't cause hallucinations. They just cause really good feelings.
No, but lack of sleep due to crack cocaine use or meth use can cause visual hallucinations as well as audio hallucinations. So like you can push your body to the limit and start seeing stuff and hearing stuff and that sort of thing. Like true psychosis.
Yeah.
Hallucinogens, I've done like DMT, 4-MeO, AMT, 2CI, LSD, mushrooms.
So that stuff
ketamine, PCP.
So that stuff can go either way as far as it being a pleasurable experience as opposed to a nightmare? I mean...
depends on the... Yeah, I've had some nightmarish experience. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, some absolute seeing demons experiences. Yeah.
Do you really think they were demons?
I saw a demon on Jed's ceiling in the 9th grade one time at 3 o'clock in the morning.
9th grade? So how were you getting these drugs? I know that's probably the dumbest question ever, but...
That was DXM, cough medicine, back in 9th grade.
We would steal cough medicine from Walmart.
Wow. And what would give you that level of... I was about to say buzz, but that's not a buzz.
No.
Like, did you have to drink the whole bottle to get to that point?
So they were like pill packs. Yeah, and you had to take like a whole box of pills. Yeah,
Good.
It was like a specific kind.
The stuff that's in cough medicine is sister drugs to PCP ketamine. It's called dextromethorphan. It's a dissociative anesthetic.
All right, so what would you guys say is going on in the spiritual realm for you to see an actual demon? Because most obviously a naturalist would say, whatever, dude, you're high as a kite, you're seeing things. But let's say you're right and you're seeing actual demons. Is that because God made your brain in a way that when interacting with these sorts of drugs, it's open to the spiritual realm, and you're not supposed to be doing that, but since you're doing that, that's what the natural effects is on the brain, to be able to see spiritual things?
Yeah, well, so let me talk first.
Yeah, you go first.
This is actually one thing that Jed and I will probably agree on. Like, Jed is much more head in the clouds, and I'm much more feet on the ground here, and like, it's probably a coincidence, or like, you might just be seeing things, and like that might be true. But I can tell you that in my experience, like my mind and my spirit was open to really anything that wanted to wander on by, kind of when I was doing those hardcore psychedelics. So
why wouldn't you? Why, Jay, are you so convinced that was not your mind playing tricks on you? And I know there's no way you can convince listeners, but if you had to give a stab at it, like, why are you so convinced those were real deal spiritual beings that you were encountering?
I think the same reason that I'm convinced that I encounter Jesus Christ when I pray or meditate, or the same reason that I'm convinced that I feel the Spirit when I'm doing, when I encounter God's glory. I can't put in words that experience. Yeah. It was an experience. It was real fear. It was real to me. So I can't be. I don't know that I could be talked out of it.
Gotcha.
You know,
Can
but
I-
I can't
can I-
explain it either.
Can I go on a little? Can I go a little trip here, if
Yeah.
you will? So first, speaking on the naturals could say, oh, it's just the drugs doing that. Scientists have no idea how hallucinogens work. They think it vaguely has to do with serotonin and dopamine, but the exact mechanism of action, they have no idea, no clue, don't know. So no one really knows. That's A. B, I've had shared hallucinations with people that I didn't tell what I was experiencing or seeing.
Dude,
there's
you
an
gotta
interesting-
give me details on that. That's ridiculous.
Well, when I did DMT, I would see these. They're called like little people, and they were like it's a sense that they're construction workers on reality. And I've talked to multiple people that have seen the same workers. They're like these little 2-inch tall, like people working on like fabric of reality.
You guys were
And-
at the Lego store. That's all
yeah.
that was.
They were
Well,
just
and
little
they're-
kids.
So there's also there's an interest there, like around the world right now, a bunch of ayahuasca users are speaking to, they're all seeing this same goddess that's instructing them, which is really freaky to me. And if you look at like the Aztec Empire, the Montezuma, I guess it was, that culture was active in mushroom use, and he took his direction directly from the war god that he communicated with when he took mushrooms and took his orders from, and who told him to do human sacrifices. And that mushrooms were ingrained in that culture. And I've just seen, I don't know, I think it's more of this, if the spirit world is all around us, right?
Yeah.
And like take cats, for instance. They see things that we cannot. They can see different variations of light, right? You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't
Sure.
know that. Well, yeah. I guess I knew that,
Just
but not in
see
those
it.
exact words. Yeah.
Infrareds, certain animals can see gamma waves and stuff like that. So if the spiritual world is all around us, but we're only vibrating at this certain frequency, if we take something that alters our perception, then we're just seeing what is already there.
Yeah.
And I've had someone else point out that it's almost like, have you seen Stranger Things?
Yes.
So, you know, when they're in the upside down, it's
Yeah.
like this wasteland. It's almost like you're turning on a giant beacon and just attracting things to you. Like,
Gosh,
There-
that's
you know,
interesting. Yeah.
I would agree
it's
with, I would agree with
interesting
that.
that your pupils get massively dilated. This is all kind of my theories. Your pupils get massively dilated if you got the Lord of Light, the morning star. That's all has to do. You know, there's. Now I just sound like a hippie ass, but okay. Bear with me. If you know, I think you're just opening some doors that you necessarily should not be messing with. There's, you know, I've seen my life. I have felt mentally different.
Right.
I've felt influenced. I've felt out of control. Yeah,
Have either one of y'all, or are either one of y'all convinced that God has spoken profound things into your life while you were tripping?
No,
No?
I haven't ever.
Um,
Not
I've
even
had-
close. I'd actually say that I'm maybe the furthest from God that I've felt when I'm tripping.
Huh.
It's kind of like this. I feel like almost an isolated world.
I've had a handful where I want to seriously reevaluate my life and devote it to God. I've had some like step back and see that I'm heading on a really, really, really terrible path and want to change and do all that. I have had some of those.
Yeah.
They don't last as soon as it's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have definitely had some. Not that God spoke to me, but just that I just looked at my
Yeah.
life in a different light.
Yeah. So Jay, this may sound like I'm trying to be trippy, but I'm really not. Like when you saw a demonic entity in Jed's room on a ceiling, you said?
Yeah.
Like, did it just look at you in a really mean way, or did it try to talk to you? Was it trying to do something to you, or you just saw it?
No, it didn't try to do anything. It was kind of this like ominous presence that was looking like almost like looking at its prey.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was this ominous presence. And I felt that real fear that real did. So I got up and obviously ran out of the room.
So
But,
could you make a case for having done drugs, your faith may be stronger? Because you're dude, if I saw a demon right now and I knew for sure it was a demon, my faith would be bolstered. Like right now, if I saw a demon and I knew it was a demon, I'd be like, oh my gosh, everything I believe is true.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way, but I suppose. I mean, it gave that dichotomy, right?
Can I
in my
lean?
mind.
Can I lean on your faith, man? Since you've seen
Yeah.
demons while you were on drugs.
Come on, man.
Well,
Come on.
with my like near death experiences for sure. Like I've told Jay, like for some reason of the fears in my life, like fear of what happens to me when I die is just like not even a question. Like not even a question.
What do you mean?
I mean, like when, I don't know, there's just been, the coma was one,
Yeah.
and then a handful of other times when, I don't know, just, I guess I can't even really put it into words, just deep, like, I just know that I know that I know that I know that there is something after this, and what it is comfort.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. All right, so
Yeah.
random questions as we wrap this up. These may be quick answers, maybe some of them longer. But how have you? I mean, maybe this is the norm, but when you're hallucinating or in some sort of a deep euphoric state, is it the norm to find yourself in a place where you don't even know that you're on the drugs and you're just like you don't have any recollection of popping those pills or whatever, and you just think that you're in a different reality and you forgot about the drugs?
No, I've always known. Well, for me, I've always known that I was on drugs. It's always very apparent that I'm tripping. I mean,
Yeah.
like you physically feel different. Everything visually feels different. It looks different. I've never forgotten that I was tripping and thought that was my new reality.
Yeah. Have you seen
I have.
have you seen different people, Jay?
I have, for sure.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what was the experience?
DMT.
Like what did you think? Were you just in like a different land or in a cartoon?
Oh,
or?
I mean, it was and this is the misconception about people always say like, "Oh, you're tripping." Like, what did you see? It's
Right.
not always necessarily like. It's really indescribable. I don't know. It's like if you've got a box and in that box is your entire core being, it's ego death in a way. It's like it just has a way of taking you out of the box that you have grown up in, and you're in this rigid thinking, and it just shatters that box and allows you to like step out. But on DMT, I did see like literally like the universe unzip and like just completely like out of body, like couldn't like everyone around me disappeared, and like you're not f***ing here.
Gosh.
Yeah.
F***ing here, yeah.
Wouldn't it be crazy if you could be on some sort of drug and it gave the appearance of thousands of years that you were living out when it was in reality like a day? Like you literally felt like you were existing somewhere else for 1,000 years. That'd be really weird.
It will. That's what drugs do have a way of just making you like things like simulation theory. It's like, yeah, that could be totally. It just really
Right.
makes you realize how flimsy, quote unquote, reality
Right.
is.
Or
And
our
whether or not that's
perspective.
Our
Yeah.
perspective is just so
Right.
limited.
Yeah. All right. Do y'all think
Now-
Jesus would smoke weed? Any possibility that if the disciples had access and knew that you can smoke it with Jesus?
I got an answer.
I think Jesus might take like a puff if it was like in rotation and they were all in community,
In rotation,
right?
Yeah.
And they were all in community and building that. I don't think Jesus would get like super spliffed and call for dominoes.
Yeah.
You know, I think that those are different.
I think so. So the debate would be whether that is part of the human experience or not. I think I think for me, doing drugs is escaping what it is to be human and to feel this world and all of its suffering, because obviously that's there for a reason. So I think he would like probably want to be in the he's got his whole eternity to be God. He's only got like 33 years to feel this like crazy physicalness. Why not feel the reality of it instead of like living in the spirit? So I think Jesus would say no to the reefer.
Yeah. I pass on grass, right?
I made it. Okay, so no.
Right.
Okay.
What do you think the church is eventually going to have to do with weed smoking? I mean, do you think it's ever
offer a joint with the bread?
Oh yeah.
During communion?
So
Yeah.
no, but seriously,
that bread
like
is so delicious.
Like if y'all think the first scenario about Johnny and smoking weed, and he really is what most people would define as a good Christian dude, that's got to be pretty common in Denver, for instance, and I would say probably common in a lot of places. Do you think it will ever be something that people are willing to be open about, to where the church will have to figure out, okay, what's our stance when an elder of the church smokes weed a little bit?
I think that there are some places where that's not as taboo as we might think it is.
Yeah.
Right. So I lived in Southern California for a long time, and people just smoke weed. I mean, it's kind of, and it's not even, they just legalized it this last year.
Right.
And I don't, the church that we were infrequent at, but that we went to, if an elder smoked weed, I don't think that it would be as big of a deal as it would be at a church in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
So I think as society changes, that will be this like slow rolling transition. I don't think the church is ever going to stand up and take a stand and say, yesterday weed was bad, but today weed is good. I think it's going to be kind of a slow change.
Yeah, like while our parents' generation is still here, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so I already know how you guys feel about legalizing marijuana. Makes a lot of sense, but should we continue a war on hard drugs? Like, should we keep that illegal?
We should do a Portugal and just decriminalize everything, because I think the war on drugs is a failure. It's just statistically, monetarily, it's a failure.
Yeah,
I think what's criminal is continuing to lock up people for minor drug possessions when what they really need is help.
Yeah,
and these are sick people that are addicted to dope, and like they need help. And what we're doing is throwing them in shitty prisons.
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame.
Yeah.
Because the mistake is thinking that making something illegal, or if you suddenly legalize it, there'll be use all over the place. Like the study's done, that is not the case, and people are doing it all over the place anyway. Except they're committing crimes to do it, and there's drug cartels, and I think it should be decriminalized.
All right, you guys have any right off the top of your head stories that are just so bizarre besides what you've already shared before we wrap this thing up? Like anything that you've experienced on drugs, or anything that you've seen someone else experience in your little drug small groups that y'all were in back in the day?
Drug small groups.
Yeah. I've got a funny one. Oh man, my mom's gonna listen to it and she's not gonna think it's funny.
Should we pass? Hey,
no, please.
Just don't tell her about this podcast, man.
My mom loves it's funny. Hey Miriam, love you. So it was like my 17th birthday, and I had skipped school, and I had youth group that night. I skipped school. Went and stole a bunch of cough medicine. I just went to all my friends and like got birthday drugs, basically.
Yeah.
And by like 6 p.m. that night, I was just tripping my gonads off, right? And so I was like, all right, Jed, suck it up, play it cool. You got to walk into youth group now. Time for youth group. It was 6:30.
It's still wet.
Because my mom would have known the jig was up. That was like, how I knew I was doing good, quote unquote. So I opened the door and surprise! Like my mom had set up a surprise birthday party for me, and I was like, I'm just gonna sneak in, and like everyone just screaming surprise at me, like, and then saying happy birthday to me, and I'm tripping my freaking balls off, dude. It was
Did people pick up on something being different about you? Like, dude,
I
acting
left
weird.
in like 3 minutes. Like after they sang happy birthday to me, I was like, thanks guys, bye. And just ran out the back door. Yeah.
Terrified.
Yeah, dude. They definitely.
Wow. Jay, did you and I feel bad that I don't know this because you and I have known each other for a good while. We're in house church together, but did you and Emily do a lot of drugs together, or did you guys meet each other after cleaning up?
Yeah, we met each other in AA in
Okay.
our first year sober. So
Gotcha.
we kind of got sober together and have like walked this whole journey together. She has like two months more than I do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So go ahead.
We're getting close to closing statements.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
Yep. I was going to ask you guys to kind of give people a snapshot of what to expect from your podcasts. But if you have another closing statement, like, do you want to, just try to soften the blow of some of the stuff that you said so Miriam's
I
not
do.
upset?
Yeah,
All right.
I do. We didn't. I just want to say that we didn't. And I guess we get into it more in our podcast. We didn't touch. We're definitely not co-signing or glorifying this. We didn't even get to how, that I've been to 18 treatment centers. I've been to prison. I've had my life I've been homeless. I tried to commit suicide. It absolutely destroyed my life and everyone that I touched.
Yeah.
But I do, like going into the counseling field, I think there's just a ton of misinformation out there. So we're we meet a bunch of people in the rooms of AA and at rehab. I've just met tons and tons of interesting people with stories like mine and stories crazier than mine. And like, I was like, man, they kind of need an outlet. So we started this podcast to get, normal people's, well, not normal people, but regular Joes that have crazy ass stories out there, good stories, and just, help dispel some myths. So people can.
Yeah. So here's I think the nuts and the bolts of it is if you can drink or do drugs responsibly, like our hats are off to you, great.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing, again, that we didn't really get to is like, if you have a problem with drugs or alcohol or like you can't quit, there is a solution out there. There is a better life. Jed and I work a 12-step program. There's a bunch of resources. Please go get help if you can't stop drinking or doing dope, because you will ruin your life and the lives of everyone around you.
Yeah.
And our email is always open for that. A couple of people from the BC Club have like everyone in there knows me as the dude that's sober, and I've gotten some emails with people asking advice for family members and stuff, and that's what it's all about, man. That's how I stay sober, is just helping other people.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
It's a win-win.
Well, Jed and Jay from the Church and Other Drugs podcast was awesome. Thank y'all. Hope you guys were okay with having some good laughs, and I appreciate the balance that you guys bring to the conversation, because I don't know, I think as dangerous as drugs are and as devastating as they are, hey, let's also acknowledge that you guys had fun doing it. And you're super happy that those days are in your past. You know what I'm saying? So, in other words, it does no good at all for us to tell our kids, stay away from drugs because they'll kill you, including marijuana.
No.
It's like, well, wait a second, my friends
good.
are smoking weed and they're all alive. So there's got to be a more balanced conversation. But it's. All right, so they can find you guys on iTunes, and you got a website,
Google
Facebook.
Play, you got a website.
Awesome.
Yep. churchandotherdrugs.com, churchandotherdrugs@gmail.com. We're around.
Awesome. And at the end of y'all's show, do you always say, and don't forget, everyone, just say no.
No, but we will now.
I will.